The air in the house felt unnaturally still, as though silence itself had taken residence in the empty rooms. For Sarah, every corner of the home reminded her of her parents, her mother's soft laugh in the kitchen, her father's firm voice, calling her name from the veranda. Now, both were gone, taken from her in a cruel accident that left her world cracked in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. Her brother, Adnan, had been the one to break the news to her. She remembered his arms. Around her, his voice shaky but resolute. "Don't worry, Sarah. We'll get through this together. I'll take care of everything." Sarah clung to those words like a lifeline. Adnan was older by 5 years, confident, worldly, the one who always knew how to handle people and situations. She, on the other hand, had always been softer, a little naive. Her parents used to call her the heart of the family, and in this storm she leaned fully on him, the will. The lawyer's office smelled faintly of leather and dust. Papers shuffled, pens clicked, and the lawyer, an elderly man who had been her father's advisor, cleared his throat. "Your parents' will is straightforward. Their assets, house, savings, land, are to be divided equally between the two, of you." Sarah looked at Adnan, relieved. "That's fair." Adnan nodded solemnly, squeezing her hand. "Of course. We'll honor their wishes." On the surface, everything seemed simple. The family home, an ancestral farmhouse on the outskirts. Of the city, 2 small shops in the market, a piece of agricultural land, and some savings in the bank. Together, it was enough for both siblings to live comfortably if shared honestly. Sarah didn't doubt for a second that Adnan would do the right thing. Grief and trust in, the weeks that followed, Sarah buried herself in mourning. Every day felt heavy, her chest weighed down by absence. She often found herself standing at her mother's cupboard, inhaling the faint scent of lavender soap still lingering on her clothes. Adnan, meanwhile, took charge. He met with lawyers, visited the land office, talked with potential buyers. Whenever Sarah asked, he would wave a hand dismissively. "Don't worry about the paperwork, Sarah. It's too complicated. You wouldn't understand all this legal nonsense. Just leave it to me." She accepted his words. After all, wasn't he the one who had always handled the serious matters of the family? When their father had been sick, it was Adnan who had dealt with the doctors, the insurance, the bills. Sarah trusted him completely. But in quiet moments, when she noticed Adnan coming home late or receiving hushed phone calls, a small knot of unease began to form in her stomach. The first signs one afternoon, Sarah overheard Adnan speaking on the phone in the veranda. His tone was low, urgent. Yes, I'll finalize it this week." "No, my sister doesn't need to." "No, I told you, I'll handle her." Sarah froze, her hand gripping the doorframe. What didn't she need to know? When Adnan noticed her, his expression changed instantly. A smile plastered across his face. "Sarah, just a friend from work," he explained quickly, slipping his phone into his pocket. "He's bothering me about some business deal. Nothing important." She nodded slowly, though doubt flickered in her mind. Selling the land a few weeks. Later, Adnan told her, "The agricultural land, we should sell it. It's too far for us to manage, and we don't know anything about farming." Sarah hesitated. That land had been their grandfather's pride, passed down to their father. She remembered summers running through the fields, her father teaching her how to tell when wheat was ready for harvest. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. "Wouldn't Baba have wanted us to keep it?" Adnan's smile was gentle but firm. "Sarah, Baba would have wanted us to be practical. We can't farm, and tenants are unreliable. Selling it is the smart choice. We'll use the money for something better." His reasoning sounded logical, and Sarah, reluctant to argue, agreed. Later, when she asked how much it sold for, Adnan gave her a vague answer. "Don't worry, I got a good price. I'll take care of it. Cracks in the promise. It was during a visit to the market that Sarah first sensed something was wrong. An old family friend, Uncle Farouk, stopped her outside a shop. "Your brother made a fine deal," he said cheerfully. "That land fetched a fortune. You two must be set for life now." Sarah blinked. "A fortune? How much did it sell for?" The man shrugged. "Oh, I don't know exact figures, but people are saying it was over 1 crore. A crore? Her heart skipped. Adnan had told her much. Less maybe Uncle Farouk was exaggerating. She tried to convince herself of that. But the seed of doubt was firmly planted now. The family home, a month later, Adnan sat her down. "Sarah, I've been thinking. This house, it's too big for just the two of us. And it's full of memories that hurt. Maybe we should sell it and get smaller places for each of us." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. "But this is home. This is where Mama and Baba lived. I don't want to sell it." Adnan sighed, his tone patient, almost patronizing. "Sarah, you can't live in memories. We have to move forward. I'll make sure you get a nice apartment. Don't worry." She swallowed hard, torn between her attachment to the house and her trust in her brother. Finally, she nodded weakly. "If you think it's best." A chilling. Discovery one night, unable to sleep, Sarah wandered into Adnan's study. Papers lay scattered across the desk. Among them, she spotted a document with their parents' property listed. But something was off. Her name wasn't there. Frowning, she read further. It was a sales agreement signed only by Adnan. Her hands trembled. He had been selling property under his name alone. Just then she heard footsteps. Adnan entered, his expression darkening as he saw her with the papers. "What are you doing?" His voice was sharp. I was just..." She stammered, clutching the paper. "Why is only your name here, Adnan? This land belongs to both of us." For a split second, she thought she saw guilt flash in his eyes. But then he smiled, smooth and practiced. "Oh, that? It's just how paperwork is done. Don't overthink it. The lawyers know what they're doing." But Sarah's heart pounded with unease. The cracks in Adnan's promise were widening, and she couldn't ignore them anymore. The whispered phone call. The final straw came a few nights later. Sarah woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen. As she passed Adnan's room, she heard him on. The phone again. His voice was urgent, hushed. "Yes, the sale is complete. She doesn't suspect a thing. I've kept her distracted. Don't worry, I'll transfer the money tomorrow." Sarah froze in the hallway, her blood turning to ice. She didn't need any more explanations. The truth hit her like a knife. Her brother wasn't protecting her. He was betraying her, and she had no idea how deep his greed truly ran. The morning after overhearing Adnan's phone call, Sarah sat at the breakfast table staring at her untouched tea. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to gather her thoughts. Her brother walked in, whistling, dressed sharply in a crisp shirt and polished shoes. He looked more like a businessman than a grieving son. "You're up early," he said casually, pouring himself tea. Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. "Adnan, was that about the land last night? The money?" For a brief moment, his hand paused mid-air, but then he chuckled. "Sarah, you really shouldn't listen to private calls. It's rude." And no, it was just work-related. She wanted to believe him. Oh, how she wanted to. But the memory of his words, "she doesn't suspect a thing," still echoed in her head. She stayed silent, but doubt gnawed at her like a relentless insect. The disappearing savings, a week later, Sarah went to the bank to withdraw some money from their joint account. Her parents had left a substantial sum there, meant to be divided equally. She expected to find a healthy balance, but when the teller handed her the statement, her stomach dropped. The account was nearly empty. "Excuse me, there must be a mistake," she stammered. "There should be several lakhs here." The teller checked again. The funds were withdrawn by Mr. Adnan 2 weeks ago. Her ears rang. 2 weeks ago, Adnan had told her he was paying some minor taxes. But this was not minor. This was everything. When she returned home and confronted him, her voice shook. "Adnan, the bank account, it's empty. Where's the money?" Adnan didn't even flinch. "Relax, Sarah. I used it to settle some debts Baba left behind. You wouldn't understand. It's complicated. But trust me, it was necessary." Tears burned her eyes. "But why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask?" He sighed, exasperated. "Because you get emotional about everything. I didn't want to stress you. I'm handling things. Just let me." Whispers of wealth Sarah tried to convince herself once again that maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe debts really existed. Maybe this was just his way of protecting her. But soon, whispers began to reach her. At a cousin's wedding, she overheard relatives gossiping. "Adnan just bought a brand new car, did you see? Must have cost a fortune. And that trip he took to Dubai last month, how does he afford all this so soon after the inheritance?" Sarah's heart pounded. A new car? A trip abroad? None of this was mentioned to her. Later that evening, she approached her cousin Farah. "Is it true? About Adnan's car?" Farah looked uneasy. "Yes, I thought you knew. He said it was with the inheritance money. I assumed you both agreed." Sarah forced a smile, but inside she felt her trust crumbling. The ancestral farmhouse. The final blow came with the farmhouse, their parents' pride, the place that had been in the family for generations. One afternoon, Sarah returned home from the market to find strangers walking through the property with Adnan. They examined the walls, the garden, even peeked into her mother's old room. "What's going on?" she demanded, her voice sharp. Adnan turned, a rehearsed smile on his face. "Oh, Sarah, these are potential buyers. I've decided to sell the farmhouse." Her chest tightened. "You decided? Without even talking to me?" He placed a hand on her shoulder as though she were a child throwing a tantrum. "Sarah, be reasonable. This house is too much for us. It's old, it needs repairs, and frankly, it's worth a lot. We could both get apartments in the city instead. Trust me. It's the smart move." "No!" Her voice cracked. "This house is the only thing left of Mama and Baba. I don't care about apartments. I want this house." For the first time, his expression hardened. The mask of charm slipped, and irritation flashed across his eyes. "Sarah, you're being selfish. You think clinging to bricks and wood will bring them back? Grow up." The words cut deep. She stepped back, speechless, as the buyers continued their tour. The proof that night, unable to sleep, Sarah searched Adnan's study again. She combed through files, her hands trembling until she found what she dreaded: finalized sale deeds. The farmhouse had already been sold. Her signature was forged. Her knees gave way, and she sank to the floor, clutching the papers. The betrayal was no longer suspicion. It was undeniable fact. When Adnan found her, his face darkened. "You went through my things again?" Tears streamed down her face. "You sold it. Without me. You forged my name." He didn't deny it. Instead, he leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "Listen, Sarah. You wouldn't have agreed, and this deal was too good to pass. I had to make a decision for both of us. For both of us," she cried. "You kept everything for yourself. The money, the land, the house, you've left me with nothing." His voice rose, sharp and defensive. "Nothing? You have me. I'm your brother. I'm taking care of you. Do you think you could manage all this?" "No. You'd have been cheated left and right. I did what was best." But Sarah no longer heard him as a protector. All she saw was a man who had stripped her of her family's legacy and her trust. A heartbroken realization days turned into weeks. Sarah felt like a ghost in her own life, drifting through rooms that no longer felt hers. Adnan flaunted his wealth. Openly now, new clothes, dinners at expensive restaurants, gifts for his friends. He never mentioned splitting anything with her again. One evening, she sat alone in the veranda, staring at the stars. Her parents' voices echoed in her memory. "Take care of each other after we're gone." She whispered into the night. "I trusted him, Baba. I believed him, Mama. And now I have nothing." Her tears fell freely, but in their place, something else began to rise, a quiet fire in her chest. She had been passive, silent, too trusting. But no more. Adnan had underestimated her. A glimpse of resolve. The turning point came when a neighbor, an old man named Qasim, approached her. "My dear, I feel I should tell you something," he said softly. "I was at the registrar's office last week. I saw Adnan filing papers in his name alone. Everything, land, house, shops. Your name wasn't there. That's not right." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "Thank you, Uncle Qasim." That night, she looked in the mirror. Her face was pale, eyes swollen from weeks of crying, but behind them, she saw a new determination. Adnan had taken everything material from her, but he had not taken her will. If he thought she would stay silent, he was wrong. The decision came to Sarah one sleepless night. She lay awake in her darkened room, the silence pressing down on her, her parents' faces flashing in her memory. They had raised her to be kind, trusting, forgiving, but they had also taught her to be strong when life demanded it. And now, life demanded it. Adnan had stolen everything material from her, but she still had one weapon he did not expect, her resolve. She could no longer stay silent. Seeking help. The next morning, Sarah visited the office of Mr. Hamid, a lawyer recommended by Uncle Qasim. He was a seasoned man in his late 50s, with sharp eyes behind thick glasses. Sarah sat across from him, her hands trembling as she laid out the papers she had found, sale deeds, forged signatures, and the nearly empty bank statements. When she finished, Mr. Hamid leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. "Your brother has committed fraud. He's exploited your trust and illegally sold joint property under his sole name." Sarah's throat tightened. "Can anything be done?" He adjusted his glasses. "Yes, but it won't be easy. We'll file a case. You'll need to be strong, because your brother will fight back. Are you prepared for that?" Sarah hesitated only a moment before nodding. "I have nothing left to lose." The first confrontation, when Adnan received the legal notice, his fury was volcanic. He stormed into the house, his face twisted with rage. "How dare you drag me to court?" he shouted, slamming the papers onto the table. Sarah stood her ground, though her heart pounded. "You left me no choice, Adnan. You lied. You stole from me." "I stole?" His laughter was bitter. "Everything I did to protect you. You're too naive, too emotional. You'd have ruined everything if I let you interfere." Her eyes burned with tears, but her voice was steady. "No, Adnan, you did it for yourself. You wanted it all, and you left me with nothing." For a moment, his mask of arrogance faltered. He opened his mouth to argue, then snapped it shut and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Family divided. The court case soon became the talk of the extended family. Relatives took sides. Some whispered that Sarah was ungrateful, attacking her own brother. Others quietly admitted they admired her courage. At family gatherings, she felt the stares, heard the murmurs. Adnan, meanwhile, painted himself as the victim. "My sister doesn't appreciate me," he told anyone who would listen. "I did everything for her, and now she drags me to court out of greed." Sarah wanted to scream, but she learned to hold, her head high. She knew the truth, and so did the evidence. In the courtroom. The day of the first hearing, Sarah sat in the courtroom, her palms damp, her chest tight. Adnan arrived dressed impeccably, confidence radiating off him as he shook hands with acquaintances. When the judge entered, the proceedings began. Mr. Hamid presented the documents, the forged signatures, the bank withdrawals, the sale deeds missing Sarah's name. Adnan's lawyer argued fiercely. My client acted in the best interests of his sister. She was in grief, incapable of handling affairs. He bore the burden alone. There was no malicious intent. Sarah's voice trembled when she was asked to speak, but she forced herself to look at the judge. My parents left everything equally to us. I trusted my brother, but he betrayed that trust. He took what wasn't his alone, and he left me with nothing. All I want is justice. Her words echoed in the silent courtroom. Adnan refused to meet her eyes. Cracks in Adnan's armor over the weeks. More evidence surfaced. Bank records showed large sums transferred to Adnan's personal account. Witnesses testified that he had bragged about getting rich after his parents' death. Even the buyers of the farmhouse admitted they dealt only with him, never with Sarah. Slowly, the arrogance in Adnan's expression began to crumble. He grew harsher, more defensive, his once slick explanations turning desperate. One afternoon, after a hearing, he cornered Sarah outside the courthouse. "You're destroying me," he hissed. "Is that what you want? To see your own brother ruined?" Sarah's heart ached, because despite everything, a part of her still loved him. But she steeled herself. "No, Adnan. You destroyed yourself. I just want back what's mine." The judgment after months of hearings, the day of judgment arrived. The courtroom buzzed with tension as the judge read his decision. Based on the evidence provided, it is clear that Mr. Adnan engaged in fraudulent activities, depriving his sister of her rightful share. The court orders the restitution of half, the remaining assets to Ms. Sarah. Furthermore, Mr. Adnan is to compensate her for the misappropriated funds as determined by valuation. Sarah closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. Justice had been served, not perfectly, because much of the money had already been squandered, but enough to restore her dignity and independence. Adnan sat stone-faced, his jaw clenched. The aftermath in the weeks that followed, Sarah began rebuilding her life. With her share of assets restored, she purchased a modest apartment. It wasn't the ancestral home, but it was hers, bought with her courage. She found work at a local school, teaching young children. Their laughter brought light back into her days. Slowly, the heaviness in her chest eased. One evening, as she unpacked boxes in her new home, she came across an old photograph of her and Adnan as children, smiling with their parents. Her throat tightened. She whispered softly, "I hope one day you understand what you've lost, Adnan." Adnan's fall meanwhile, Adnan's life began to unravel. His reputation was tarnished by the court case, friends who had once flocked around. His wealth drifted away. His reckless spending caught up with him, leaving him drowning in debt. He still lived in luxury, but it was a hollow existence, lonely, bitter, and haunted by the knowledge that he had traded his sister's love for money that slipped through his fingers like sand. Late at night, he sometimes stared at the empty chair across from him, remembering how Sarah used to sit there with a smile. Now, there was only silence. Closing scene. Months later, Sarah visited her parents' graves. She placed fresh flowers and sat quietly, the wind rustling through the trees. "Mama, Baba," she whispered, her voice steady. "I did what you would have wanted. I fought for what was right. Adnan. He chose his path. I can't change that. But I will live with dignity, and I'll carry your love with me always." For the first time in a long while, peace settled over her heart. She stood, wiped her tears, and walked away, not broken, not defeated, but stronger than ever. Behind her, the gravestones stood tall, silent witnesses to a promise broken and a betrayal endured, but also to a daughter who had risen above both.